All right, it looks like we're live. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another webinar. I see our chat group has already started chatting, which is fantastic to have you here. And I recognize some of the names from our previous webinars, so fantastic to have you all here. We're going to give folks another couple of minutes. Walaikum salam, to join in, and then we're going to get started. As usual, for the questions and the polling, we're going to be using Slido, and I would love it if you guys could get your phones out or just navigate to another page and get joined in at 215-3311 with the hashtag, and then we can get started with our presentation. A couple of things that just as a reminder, we love it when you guys are chatting in the chat group. So even though we are going to have the polling questions and we'll kind of center our topics and conversation around that, we also do pay attention to the chat as well. So feel free to make comments there, chat amongst yourselves as well. This is a friendly and very welcoming space, as you see. If it's your first webinar joining us, welcome. We do have recordings of our previous webinars on YouTube posted. So if you've missed some of the great speakers that we've had so far, do check those out as well. They are available for replay. We may not be able to take them down. We may be taking them down at a later point in time. So I highly recommend you check them out as soon as possible. All right, so it looks like most folks in the group are okay and seeing things and hearing us very well. Saima, you're good? We can get started? Excellent. All right, so let me just get my screen here into presentation mode just so that you guys can see this a little bit better. All right, okay. So here's our Slido joining in. If you don't mind, I'm going to have Slido details throughout the call available, so you're more than welcome to join it at any point in time. But we like to get started with Slido right from the get-go. So what you'll expect in this is a session all about being Muslim and thriving in a workplace. So we are going to be talking a little bit about the addressing of the imposter syndrome that has come up even in our previous calls. And discussions. We're going to be talking about, how do we create inviting spaces and events for Muslims and non-Muslims in our workplaces, and also addressing Islamophobia in the workplace. And today's guest speaker is Saima Malik, who's head of automation, enterprise digitization and automation at TD. She is one of the executive leads of two of the Muslim groups at TD, Muslim Employee Resource Groups, one TD Ummah and TD Muslims and Allies, and has some fantastic experience to share about the growth of those groups and some of the fantastic events and interactions that the team has been able to put together. Obviously, this webinar series has been brought to you by MAX, specifically MAX Mentorship Program. And to find out more about MAX, I highly recommend that you check out all of these channels because there is a variety of information on the website itself, on the YouTube channel Muslims Achieving Excellence, as well as all of the posts about new events, programs, registrations, and so on and so forth. You'll find them on LinkedIn and Instagram. So highly recommend check those out. Follow any of them, and you'll be in the know. So if you don't know about Max's really purpose is to inspire leadership and empower change in our communities. The mission is to recognize and accelerate productive contributions made by Muslims in North America through academic and professional development. So there's some of the Max accomplishments to date, but obviously these are just drop in the ocean based on the number of interactions that Max professionals have amongst each other and in the community itself. So I highly recommend that you check out, again, lots of valuable programs for professionals and young adults that are still going through their schooling. As far as the programs themselves, you'll see there's, scholarships, a whole slew of professional excellence series that are available and that keep coming up. So there's, new events as well as past events that have been fantastic. My introduction to Max has been actually attending one of the women in leadership events last year. And honestly, it was so inspiring that I felt like I will join as many events as possible to meet so many fantastic leaders and change makers. And here I am volunteering with the Max mentorship programs, bringing you this series of webinars. Now, this series of webinars is complementing our Max mentorship program. I believe our signups have now completed. The team is working feverishly to connect all of the mentees with the mentors that have signed up in a variety of cities. So you'll hear soon, if you are part of that and you have signed up, you'll hear very soon about the matchups that have been made and the speed mentoring events that are being coordinated in a couple of the local cities. So again, check out more on the website, on the mentorship program itself and all of those details. This series continues to be available to mentors, to mentees, and everybody else outside of the program. All right, and then as usual, we're going to honor our where we are and where we work with our Indigenous lands acknowledgement. And I'd like to acknowledge that we live and work on unceded traditional lands of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. But regardless of where we come from, we're all interconnected through the land that we live on and resources we use. But as Muslims, we commit to continuous learning journey and allyship, to elevate Indigenous voices and lived experiences and cultivate reconciliation in Canada and US. And as has been our traditional in previous webinars, I do like to share very specific resources that will allow us that journey to continue, and I hope that you will take advantage of them. As Muslims, we have very unique stories that all of us bring, and as we've kind of emigrated into this country, as most of us have. So it is extremely important to honor and understand the suffering of the peoples that have originally been residing in these lands. So one of the resources that I will provide you with today is the link at the top that you see, Residential School Survivor Stories. This site contains personal stories of all of the survivors, not all, but definitely a selection of survivors that have opted to share their stories. As you can imagine, these are extremely difficult for people to relive, so I'm extremely glad that they were able to record them. So that many of us who have been ignorant, who come to this country not understanding the suffering of the peoples that have been here long before we came along, we can learn, understand, figure out how to support and navigate this space. The other resource that I will add is the Legacy of Hope Foundation, which is actually a supporter of this website and curator of the stories as well. Again, we all have very keen understanding of why it is extremely important for the stories to be heard and to be very well understood directly from those who have gone through this degree of suffering, and they can reach the people that have newly arrived to this country. So I hope that you will honor the Indigenous peoples by continuing your learning journey, but as well as contributing to in any which way you can to rebuilding the community of Indigenous peoples across Canada or US by financially supporting a variety of charities that we'll share, or any of the ones that you come across on your own. With that, I'll bring you to Saima Malik, who I mentioned earlier before. And Saima, I'd love for you to do a little bit of your own introduction and share with the group a little bit about yourself, above and beyond the very fancy title that you have and your fantastic accomplishments.
Thank you so much, Aida. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Are we at good afternoon yet? Yes, good afternoon.
Yes.
I do believe that we've come full circle. Aida and I had the opportunity to start some of this amazing work at TD and have also become friends. So thank you so much, Aida, for the opportunity today. And I'm really, really excited to talk more about everything that we've done together and continue with the legacy of the work that you've started. Thank you for having me again. And first, I just want to introduce myself. Yes, I have a fancy title. I'll talk a little bit about that. But not only am I professional, I'm Muslim. I'm a woman. I'm a parent of 3 children. A leader both with at the enterprise and corporate, and also within the community. And I'm deeply passionate about helping to create these spaces, not just where we work, within our communities, but enable us to truly thrive. So I'm excited about this topic. My career journey has been, 25 plus years in the area of digital and transformation. I have been with TD for almost 14 years. My primary role has always been a change agent, initiating and enabling new capabilities and technologies for the bank or for other organizations. I also have a background in technology as a consultant and with Microsoft. Most recently, I lead the Enterprise Automation Center of Excellence. And the most exciting part of it is we're exploring the intersection of automation and AI and new capabilities like agentic AI and what that means for the bank, and really ensuring that we continue to keep a human-centric approach to everything that we do, keeping the human part of it, which is a big part of, how I like to think about, human connection is one of the most important things. I also lead and started the work with Aida around the TD Muslim and Allies portfolio. We are an employee resource group, and it's been an incredible journey around advocacy, driving education, and I'll talk a little more about building bridges, which I really think is one of the main purposes of the work that we do together. So I'm excited to talk more about, all the things you want to talk about, showing up authentically, being, who I am, and leveraging my leadership and position to help work through some of the challenges and opportunities of being Muslim in the workplace.
Wonderful. Thank you for that introduction. And then always before we get going, we really like to hear your thoughts and concerns on the topic that we're presenting so that we can include some of that into the presentation. So I do have the active Slido poll on, what prevents you from thriving as a Muslim in a workplace. So we highly encourage you to, dropping any comments here that will help guide our dialogue. And then obviously you can put comments onto the chat as well, but we prefer it here in Slido because we can keep it a little bit long term and then do some analysis as well for our upcoming sessions. So let's hear from you. What are some of the things that feel like they may be preventing you from thriving as Muslim in the workplace? I see folks typing. I like typing. Now I'm excited to see what comes up. Yep, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of reproach. I feel like many people will be just kind of nodding to these ones as well, but because they do resonate with many of us. Not just in, I would say, not just in being Muslim, but it just kind of being Muslim as another dimension of who we are in a workplace, right? They're taking a good chunk of time away from work. Okay, pretty Muslim. Okay, I think we can kind of take notes on some of these, Simon. We can circle back.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, imposter syndrome. Can I? We see a theme, right? Snow White, wonderful. I get that a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get the
Yeah.
oh, you're not one of those, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What do
we
you
hear
mean
that
by
a lot.
that? I think was the question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll leave you guys to keep putting in your comments there if you'd like. But I'm going to start off with Simon, just kind of in your thoughts, in your experience. What does it mean for you to show up authentically as a Muslim in a workplace, and how that could have changed potentially over the years?
Yeah. I think this is such an important question. And, what does it mean to show up authentically as a Muslim? So I first want to address one piece of, what does it mean to be Muslim? And as we started this journey at TD and we thought about our TD Muslim and Allies group, we did ask ourselves this question, and that, where we landed is, if you identify as Muslim, if you call yourself a Muslim, you're Muslim. That's all that it needs to be. Halas, that's it. And so when I think about showing up authentically as Muslim in the workplace, one of the things that I've embraced and has worked so well for me, especially at TD, is being able to work somewhere where it is celebrated to authentically bring your whole self. I know that sometimes we say that, but being in an organization that has a culture of care for the people who work there, it's important to be included and valued, that there's consistent support and appreciation and recognition. And also, how do we support you in the best way with different resources? These are all important things. And so when you think about authentically showing up, that's one of the most important things for me, that I work in an organization that allows me to authentically show up. It's about showing up about my faith, my values, and my identity, and that there's no compromise, there's no code switching that needs to happen. But I have to share that this has been a journey for me in particular. As I've gotten older, I've grown even within my career to not do quiet, what you might call quiet accommodation. You don't really need to say anything. You'll just step out quietly and do your prayers, or you'll step out quietly for Jama, or you don't really mention your fasting. But with age and wisdom, I'd say that over the years, that authenticity has grown a bigger part of my identity and my own empowerment in who I am. And now I proudly share who I am. I look for opportunities to educate others of what it means to be Muslim. And I'm using my voice to help create that space through something like our TD colleagues group. And when I think about showing up authentically, I think about 3 C's. Specifically, I would say work, but I think anywhere. And I'll talk a little bit about how you show up for work and is really how you show up anywhere. First is clarity. And I think many people, especially if you have a strong sense of being, knowing and grounding yourself in your faith and your values is a core part of our values. When we think about being Muslim in the sense of integrity, really having that clarity of who you are and grounding yourself in that is really important. The next one is a little bit tougher because I do believe for me in particular, it came with time and age, is courage. Being brave enough to show up in your identity in these spaces and know that sometimes you might not be misunderstood. And sometimes there may be people who don't understand who you are and why you're doing it. And that's where I'm going to say having a community, especially at work, is so imperative to help create that safe space. And then having compassion. I have met many individuals who don't really understand a lot about being Muslim or Islam, and meeting individuals where they are. And a core part of even my brand and who I am is building bridges. And that's just through listening, talking to people, being, very positive, and I would use the word loving almost around who you are as a Muslim and embracing. And it really goes such a long way in making people feel welcome. Especially if you think about the narrative that sometimes we have to go against that's out there in social media, entertainment, about who Muslims are. So there's a big part, and we did talk about it around owning our own narrative and sharing who we are, what our values are, and there's so much to celebrate around being Muslim and the work that we do.
Honestly, exceptionally valid points. Could not agree more. I would definitely echo that. Again, so I mentioned on previous calls that I'm Bosnian, and we've kind of survived this genocide because we're Muslim, but we actually didn't really know what that meant. So a lot of times during the war, we were kind of confronted with, who are you? Who are you? And we would kind of stand up and say, I'm Muslim, but I didn't actually really know what that was. So it took me a long time to actually really have a good understanding of what is it really being Muslim? What does that mean? What do I stand for? What are the values, right? How do I want to show up? And one of the great things that I've had is I had experience of a neighbor who lived next door, and he worked at Microsoft. And he just welcomed everybody in the neighborhood. When you come to his house, there was no not coming. He would have the neighbors come over. He had people from his work coming over. Everybody was always welcome, and the way he created this, environment, I thought, okay, I want to be like that when I grow up. Like, that's how I want people to experience what a Muslim really is. Because as a Muslim, as soon as you show up, it's like, what kind of Muslim are you, right? And that's just what media has done over so many years. Well, we've allowed media also to maintain that kind of, I would say, image, and continuously perpetuate images that are not accurate at all. So for me, how I show up in a workplace, yes, people are surprised, and I'm like, yeah, this is how we all are actually. What you know is wrong. So this is the
Yeah.
experience, right? So the
Yeah.
smiling, the welcoming, if I'm celebrating, then you're also invited to celebrate with me. And and how you show up, whether it's even with my neighbors. We're the family in the neighborhood that had movies out for the kids every Thursday and Friday night. We would screen movies. Don't tell anybody, but we would have movies for the kids, and the kids would be coming to our house to play. And when it's Eid, the loot bags are going to all the neighborhood kids. So um, it's being really thoughtful and mindful that this is how I want to show up. And every day is a new day to try something new, to do so. And you are going to find a lot more welcome than resistance, a lot more pleasant surprises um, than what you feel like, the anxiety around how you show up and how will I be received. Right? And let that anxiety that people have built up over time, let it wear off with every interaction that they have with you. And I think you'll achieve a lot more than by hiding, by being reserved, by keeping to yourself, by not integrating in any way, right?
Yeah.
But I will say that when you work in a corporate environment, like some of the bigger organizations that they have dedicated diversity and inclusion programs. Some of the small organizations where I worked, companies privately owned, it's not like that. That's not the environment, right? That's not the focus. They won't spend a dime on it, right? It is more challenging for people than to show up and say, okay, well, let's build out this whole diversity and inclusion thing for Muslims, when you don't actually even see it being done for any other group. So I would still say interactions, right? If it's Eid, celebrate Eid with everybody. Be vocal about, hey, I'm fasting, and explain what it is. And it's okay if you have to explain that you've drank water earlier in the morning and you're not going to drink again until the evening. It's okay.
Yeah, questions. Yeah, questions and curiosity are beautiful things to open up the dialogue. And I would say, many of us do all sorts of work to grow as leaders. And one of them is really understanding what your core values are. And so you always want to authentically show up. And I know some people can be shy, some people can be introverts versus extroverts. I would just say, as Muslims, we have beautiful core values. Kindness, compassion, service, integrity, gratitude and shukr. These are all beautiful values. And if you anchor on these values, these are truly human values.
Mhm.
And so any human would appreciate if you're anchoring in these values and you show up as a person at work and wherever else you choose to show up. So that would be kind of my advice around authentically showing up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would, I know we always talk about the introvert and extrovert, and people are surprised when I say I am absolutely 100% introvert. Right? It's surprising to most because I'm hosting these sessions, but I am actually an introvert. But when it matters, when it's important, like this is important, and sharing who Muslims are, it's a life-saving important this right now, right?
It
Um,
is. It's so
then show up.
important, I think,
Yeah,
purpose. Yeah,
yeah,
having a sense of purpose is
exactly.
something for me is the purpose and serving in Allah's way is representing who we are. To your point, creating a voice and a safe space for us, showcasing love. I love the work that Max does.
Mhm.
And why I love the work is it continuously allows us to showcase these amazing leaders upcoming leaders, youth, all of these, this beautiful community in a way that's positive and in the light of excellence. So, really, really proud of the work that we're doing here. And I never got to share with you that, the Women in Leadership program was a conversation that Azar and I had where I saw some white space to say, we're doing all this amazing work. Let's profile the amazing leaders that are females and women Muslim leaders. Again, another facet of showing our community and who we are and continuing to build that sense of authenticity and changing the narrative of what it means to be Muslim.
Yeah. Wonderful. Now, let's focus a little bit more on the work that you've done over the past year and a half at TD. Building out the community, more present, I would say, community, more visible community at TD. And some of the challenges that you kind of went along and addressed. And I know you've shared some of the visuals here that we'll definitely get through as well.
Yeah. So why don't I start a little bit? I don't know if Aida will take full, kudos to, she started the work at TD and the TD Muslims Allies. And I just want to thank her because she was really the change agent and leader who helped to bring all of us together. And when we think about, challenges in doing this type of work, I want to actually start with how I got engaged. I have led various diversity inclusion initiatives at TD and outside in the community. Leading a major initiative around women in tech and representation within the technology ecosystem for Canada. And Ida came and said, I'm thinking we're going to do an Islamophobia event at TD. And I went, and I say that because I had to demonstrate courage, conviction, and compassion and say, let me listen to what she wants to do. And I would say that I was a little scared to say, we're going to talk openly about Islamophobia with a corporate environment. What's the language we use? How do we talk about this to make sure that we're making our allies understand the needs of our community and how they can help us? And really, it started with there. And I think that was a challenge because there's a lot of nuances you have to navigate, especially within a corporate environment, to talk about things like Islamophobia, the crisis in the Middle East and Gaza. How do we talk about that in a way that represents our needs, that makes us feel recognized and not just accommodated, and feels like meaningful dialogue with our stakeholders, communities, and the people that we work with? Mm-hmm. And so I want to thank you. And that was the first step as part of, engaging and being a part of this community. And I would say that if I kind of think about, what the motto there was, it's building a bridge to where we didn't know it needed to exist. It was building bridges with our other leaders and allies in the organization. It was building bridges with our colleagues who didn't know about, the Muslim and allies and what it means to be Muslim. And it was building bridges even for our corporate organization to how to navigate, being a Muslim and managing through some of these challenging times. So let me get talking about the exciting stuff. So TD Muslim and Allies, over 30 plus volunteers as part of the team. There are over 1,000 community members of colleagues and allies. So proud of this group. We are, if you're not familiar with TD, one of the largest North American banks. We have over 90,000 employees in our organization. And what Ida's got on the screen here is this beautiful building that we've all moved into recently. It's called TD Terrace. If you're not familiar, Yasmin Fadel recently won a major Women in Leadership Award, and she was critical in helping to design this building. And why I'm so incredibly proud of the building and the work that was done here is a true representation of the culture that TD has. And I'll talk a little bit about more of the Muslim and Allies portfolio, but in this building, which is, first of all, a beautiful building, has like some amazing things in the building. We have an arcade floor, a sky garden, meditation rooms. It's gorgeous inside. But if I can get you to go to the next slide, we have not just like prayer meditation rooms. We have prayer rooms. They're dedicated to prayer. We have them on multiple floors. These are safe spaces where Muslim colleagues can go and pray. And it's beautiful for us to be able to have these spaces that at any time you can walk in and pray. And then we've got dedicated wudu rooms. Like, how cool is that? And it's not an ugly space. These are beautifully designed, intentional, thoughtful spaces. And just again, a shout out to Yasmin and her team who built this. Really just, so thankful to have this as part of, the sort of structure of our system that will continue to live on for many, many years. And sort of an example of how Muslims are living, seamlessly as part of our workspace and culture at TD. If I go on a little more, I talked about, the group that we've started together, and it was last year was a year of firsts. We had our first Islamic Heritage Month event in last year September, the year before last year September. And it was an amazing event. We had over 300 plus colleagues come through. We had booked the conference center floor. Here's some just examples of all the colleagues enjoying the many events that we had. We had our first Eid celebration in one of our buildings on the 32nd floor with an open patio, beautiful view of the Toronto skyline. And we had many non-Muslims attend who were curious about what this event was. And, we had a chai station, we had food, we had land acknowledgements, we had a panel discussion of Muslims at our organization talking about what it means to be Muslim. So a really beautiful way to showcase our culture, our religion, and how we show up every day. We also are very, very fortunate to have many senior executives who are Muslim. And they do a phenomenal job of what it means to lead and be Muslim at the same time. Rizwan Kalfan, who is EVP on the digital personal banking side, and Mushtaq Najarelli, who is also an EVP, I believe, and leads a portfolio within the Canadian personal banking space also, including contact center. So we're really, really thoughtful, really, really thankful. We also had a Ramadan event, and we just landed a very successful Ramadan event. We had 8 iftars north and south of the border, New York City, New Jersey, Montreal, Toronto. We had and we also had a solidarity fast that we raised money for Second Harvest. We raised over $5,000 there, and then we also raised $7,000 through our iftars for local charities. We held 4 webinars with over 450 people attending, and we did what we thought was really important, a number of informational and myth-busting blogs around Ramadan so that we can help non-Muslim allies understand what it means to be Muslim and how to support Muslims during Ramadan. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Aida, but it's been an amazing journey that a couple of core executives and a core team of 30 have been enabling some phenomenal work as part of the TD community.
No, I mean, it's been an incredible journey, honestly. And one of the things, even before that first, I would say, session that we had on Islamophobia, was 2-3 months ago, I was starting to kind of call out, trying to find colleagues across TD that would be willing to lean in and help out and establish really a really nice presence within the organization. So many people are wondering how do I actually get this done? The first thing that we did was, one, TD's values and how the organization shows up. It was already apparent in diversity of the D&I programs, right? So precedent was already set for the wonderful things that we could do. And then from there on, we aligned with the diversity and inclusion team. We aligned with HR support, making sure that they have comfort in, here's what we would like to do. And there was absolute 100% full transparency on everything that was posted. So one of the things that it's not shown here, but there's actually an entire site of resources that were created for the community, non-Muslim community, to understand accommodation needs, accommodation requirements. How does that look like? How do you accommodate an employee that has, for example, a funeral that they need to go to, and it's within 24 hours, right? Whereas usually, in most other cultures, you have a number of days of notice. How do you accommodate halal food? And so many variety of articles that were published, resources, videos that were created. That's just kind of a drop in the ocean behind a lot of this other great work as well. And HR happily reviewed all of it. They were super excited to have a community of people that they could lean on to ask questions, to ask for guidance. Even as far as, I think at the time we were still talking about formal training on Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. So they were actually really keen on on being allies and learning from us and having that kind of support internally. And making sure that there's a group of people that if they had any questions, they could always lean on. And then throughout the entire experience, like, we had very much so very open door policy when it came down to anybody that wanted to join or had questions about the community, they wanted to attend events, in any shape or form. What I absolutely loved about the senior leadership that was Muslim, they would actually challenge their teams. We had a solidarity fast challenge every year. This was the second year that TD also had it, where non-Muslims would join in 1 day of fasting, and at the end of the day, you're donating what you would have spent on a lunch to a charity. So we ended up raising, even in the first year, over $5,000. There was a short notice, but we were the group that donated the most to Second Harvest, in such a short time period. So it was wonderful to see. And I had a friend of mine who reached out and she said, "Hey, are we doing this again?" I'm like, "Absolutely. You come to my house, fast. I gave her the rules and here's what you need to do. And at night you come to my house, I feed you, we break our fast together." So wonderful memories, honestly, created that, normally maybe it wouldn't have. So if you're looking to do something similar, you want to navigate this, and you're figuring out, how do I bring this into my workplace, and how do I reach out to us? We have on the call, we have Saima, and I can see even in our chat group, Amr is in the house, which is fantastic. Ujala is in the house, a number of other folks that are volunteering and making things happen at TD that have fantastic experience. But there are also other organizations that are also doing a great job of this as well. So you can get ideas of what have we done. Like, we've one of the things that was done for the Islamic Heritage Month, on the screen you'll see here a collaboration with the ISNA Canada, where they brought in the VR sets, a few VR sets, so you could actually do the VR experiences. You could do listening to adhan for the first time in your life, like putting in a fantastic recitation and then the explanation of what does this mean? What is adhan? What is the people what are they listening to 5 times a day? So, prayers, translation of prayers, like all of this was created and curated for these events that the team was more than happy to share with anybody else who's willing to, bring some of the wonderful parts of Islam in their workplace to help, share the information and kind of build these bridges of understanding throughout the organization. So fantastic work. I could not be more proud of how far the team has come and where things are going. I do believe we have one more photo here. If you want to just speak to this event.
Yeah, this was our first iftar that we had at the in TD Terrace. Just this past Ramadan, you'll see Amer there, Wael there, Farzia, and also Basit, all members of the TD family, and Hussein there also. And we just had a very frank panel discussion about what it means to be Muslim and what it means to practice Ramadan. I would say at this event, if I can just bring a human element, we had an ally come and speak and give the closing remarks. And I have to say, it was one of the most beautiful moments I've known this individual for a very long time, and she is an ally, part of Rizwan's team.
Mhm,
And she spoke about how her interaction on a day-to-day basis with Rizwan really helped to inform her perspective of what it meant to be Muslim,
mhm,
and really, changed her thinking and encouraged her to really understand and learn more. And the words that she shared at this event were so moving, brought a tear to my eye to learn about just how we can actually impact people and build a human connection with individuals who are non-Muslims. And she then helped to establish the Second Harvest Partnership as part
mhm,
of the Solidarity Fast and was helping to lead that work. So, I mean, just some really beautiful examples of individuals who are not Muslim showing up for our community in these spaces, that this work is meaningful. This work makes a difference in helping to build bridges.
mhm,
And it's not easy work. There are always some tough conversations, especially during some challenging times. We've
mhm,
had some very spirited conversations around how to deal and navigate with, the times we're in today. And how do we, first always is, how do we support our Muslim community? How do we build bridges with the non-Muslim community? And how do we make sure that the needs of our community are being understood and represented? And in no way are we alienating our Muslim community. So I just wanted to showcase that.
mhm. Wonderful. Now, I do want to leave some time for questions, so absolutely, let's do a Q&A. And then again, if you do have questions, you're absolutely more than welcome to post them in any space, but the Q&A is live in the Slido, so I will pop that up in 1 second. Let me just get back to presentation mode and see what are some of the questions that may come up. Okay. So it won't come up here, but I do have it here on screen. So you're more than welcome to ask any question that comes to mind. And I'm hoping that we did touch on a number of the comments earlier around anxiety. It does not mean that that anxiety, trepidation does not exist, but it does mean that I'll do it anyway, right? I will still show up as a Muslim with the best intentions, and whatever the outcome is, if I do show up with integrity and honor, um, then I really have nothing to worry about. Everything else is Allah's plan, right? So I wouldn't look at it as something that would hold me back in any organization that I'm working in. But I will work with people with with honor, with kindness. If there is an opportunity where we can educate, where we can engage and bring people in, I would do that any day. I feel like that's really what our purpose, one of our purposes is, as much as possible. So, I would highly recommend, if there is anxiety, like I'm not going to pretend to be a scholar of Islam. I'm not. I'm curious. I learn, I read. I look at any controversial topic that, people might have multitude of opinions about, and I will go do my own research and formulate my opinion on the same, and have some evidence that I can speak to when I'm actually asked difficult questions. But I would rather find information than shy away, and um, not be present, not be active, just because I don't know. Today there are some fantastic resources. I mean, I keep going back to Yakin Institute for a variety of content that I've leveraged in the past, and that has helped me in my education. And to have an answer to help dispel Islamophobia versus not be silent, right? I feel like I'm part of the problem if I'm not at least trying in some way to deal with that. So I see a question. Do you get any pushback on putting these events? We did not have any pushback when I was there. Again, there was precedent set. So TD and Simon can speak to this. There are extensive programs for women in leadership. Indigenous community, Black Employee Network has done fantastic job of events and creatively showing up and putting on engaging events for the community. So we did not have any pushback. There is a difference. Obviously, we are doing. I keep saying we. So there's no funding, obviously. So a lot of it is self-funded, volunteers, people putting in their time and effort to make things happen. So that's par for the course. But that'll be I think in pretty much every organization, but not really a pushback that I've seen. Simon, I don't know
Yeah.
if you've seen it.
Yeah, so I want to acknowledge the question. Did we officially receive pushback? No. Do we get some level of pushback? Yes, sometimes, but we embrace that pushback. And what I mean by that is let's engage in a dialogue.
Mhm.
Why is there pushback? And then we methodically help to address the concerns and the risks that might be, being asked of us. And so, this isn't an easy path, but, we are fortunate enough to work in an organization that makes it easier for us. We are an employee resource group. And so, being defined as part of that, there's many employee resource groups across the organization. The one thing I would say that I'm so hopeful for is that we are now finding each other at other corporate organizations and other employee resource groups. We're looking for opportunities to partner together. We're looking to understand how we can learn from each other. And so that's a really powerful thing about, helping to navigate some of the challenges that we have. And so on the second harvest and solidarity fast, we looked for opportunities to partner, and we did partner with in sort of showcasing and communicating that other organizations like PwC and Deloitte were all doing their solidarity unity fast on the same day as we were. So just some examples of how to kind of navigate it, but I wouldn't say that it's not challenging. And I'll actually just give one example. At our iftar, there was an executive who talked about the idea of introducing and I don't know if you've seen it, but TD had as part of their precious metals portfolio an ETH coin that you could purchase, and it's beautiful. And she talked about 3 or 4 years ago that this was an idea she had. She worked in a space that there were not a lot of Muslims, and she was very scared to go bring this idea up. And she had the courage, she had the conviction to introduce this idea to her boss, who didn't know a lot about being Muslim. And he's like, okay, this is an interesting idea. How much do you need in funding to get this started? And she said, okay, I need X. And that year she sold a couple of hundred. The year after she sold a couple of thousand. And now she's beyond the couple of thousand. And we've got this portfolio of ETH coins. So hopefully, in a moment of celebration for the community, just being recognized and have something represent the Muslim community at TD. So just a story of like where that, courage and conviction and the compassion of her leader allowed her to kind of navigate some of those challenges. But it does exist in every space.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. You're dealing with human beings who have preconceived conceptions, and that will be for any other group that would have had to go through similar, right?
Yep.
I would just remember, take it in stride and see it as an opportunity rather than a roadblock. As I would say that in any terms. I think one of the other things that I definitely want to mention is, a recent, I would say, a win on the TD direct investing. There is, if you are investing through TD and direct investing itself, there is now a halal option where you can actually see.
But yeah.
Correct. So you can actually see the recommended stocks that can be purchased if you're managing your own investments, which is fantastic, right? And based on that interest, the team is hoping to take things a little bit further, right? And keep influencing for products that align with Muslim values. Without this group here, like this, there's actually quite a big organization within TD right now that is, one of them is focused on business development, another one is focused on internal community development and interactions with the other communities, because there's over 110,000 colleagues at TD in Canada, US, and globally. Another one is an external outreach with other organizations, volunteering groups, and so on and so forth. So there's been like an ecosystem created of wonderful people that have different expertise that are driving the conversation, in all of these different areas. And I honestly can't wait to see where it's taken. I mean, I'm still crossing my fingers for halal mortgages because that becomes a more prevalent conversation from what we need. But it's a snowball effect from a simple few conversations amongst few of us, and people that are so passionate about making things happen. Wonderful things happen. So yes, we were anxious, but we addressed the risks. So what Simon mentioned, and did it anyway, right? With great outcomes in the end. Okay, so I'm going to look at our chats and looking a couple of other things here. There was one question: is it ever awkward to get accommodations on Fridays, especially if important meetings or events conflict with prayer? So, I mean, I can give you some examples of this and how others, my colleagues, have navigated any of this. If you need time for prayer in any point in time, I would say just be really open about it and speak to your manager about, hey, what are the possibilities? I'd love to understand. This is really important to me. I'm always more than happy to make up the time and make sure that important work is not put to the side. But is it always 100% possible? From what my understanding, what I hear from my male Muslim colleagues, it isn't always an easy thing for them to get out of a meeting and then get out of something that they need to do and get to the prayer time. But one of the things that, again, Muslims have done at TD is they'll organize Jummah in one of the prayer rooms. So it's easier for people to get to. So they're using the internal channels to say, hey, who's leading Jummah? We'll show up. It's a lot faster than trying to go to the nearest mosque, right? So that's one thing. Again, we could do that in where there's larger spaces in organizations that have that, but in others that don't, it's a bit more challenging, right? You're still on your own. So be honest, be kind, be thoughtful about what you're asking for in considering the space that you're working in, and the accommodation that you're asking in light of the fact that the work still has to be done, and what you can do to kind of accommodate that back. And then I'll leave to you. Kamal, I see your question. I'm not familiar, but there are lots of organizations, honestly, that NCCM is one that works with the government, and also one that we relied on for Islamophobia training, and all of the boards of education are also relying on to train the teachers. So there's lots of resources. We don't have shortage of resources that are available. It's making sure that they're introduced in the workplaces and kind of led with coordination of HR. That's where I think where we need to be stepping up a little bit more. Can you share what were some of the topics you covered under Islamophobia session? How does your ERG navigate current anti-Arab Islamophobia, anti-Palestinian identities? Okay, go ahead. You want to take care of this one, Simon?
Sure. Our Islamophobia event was really first, we did something that was a little more basic. We first helped to define Islamophobia. We helped to articulate what it was so that people understood what Islamophobia was. And then we did anchor in, also articulating who we are as Muslims and as people. So we spent time also educating around what it meant to be Muslim, what our values are, and who we are. And then we had conversations around how we foster dialogue and compassion to better understand who we are as Muslims. And we had a diverse group of Muslims at TD, so not only senior executives but other individuals and colleagues. And it was a conversation along with a dialogue. The other thing that was, quite meaningful was last year around the period of October when we saw, things start to spark up in Gaza. We collectively with our Arab community hosted an event where we enabled the opportunity for our colleagues, employees to share how they were feeling. We wanted to create a very safe space for them to, share, what they were feeling, how they were feeling, give them an opportunity to share their grief. So for many reasons, one, just to make them feel seen and heard within our own community. And then also identify and share what resources we had available or support that we could provide. So it was an opportunity for us to listen to our community also to say, like, what are their needs and what do we need to make sure that we can, take action on, or how we can more effectively represent the needs of our community. We got some very good feedback. And I would not say that it was controversial, but it was something that we had not done we had done something like it previously, but the breadth and scale of how we did it was something new. And so I'm really proud of our team members. Specifically, there's some leaders even on the call today who helped to lead and navigate that conversation, which is a very difficult conversation to navigate. And we also had executive leaders who had families that were impacted during that time. And so just like very emotional, sensitive time for us to help our navigate and support.
Thank you for that. Let me see any other questions that I see here. Summit, how can you be involved? I would honestly say go to the Max org website, and there's a variety of channels based on interest where you can lean in and contribute and identify a lead for that space and get engaged for sure. I'm just looking at our Q&A. As a recent graduate looking to step into their industry freshly and begin their career, how would you say I can play my part? What things should I look out for? Look, I would say, as a Muslim, I feel like I want to make sure that I give the best experience of dealing with Aida, right? So I do strive to be a high performer. Make sure that that experience from a delivery side, it is top notch, right? And then from a interaction, respect, and just engagement with my colleagues, I do like to make sure that that's also there's solid positive interactions that people can come back to and relate. This is what it's really like working with Aida, and you can't go wrong with that. And that really comes back to your values as a Muslim, how you want to show up in a workplace or anywhere else, really, and just being consistent about it. People will notice the consistency and how you show up in every single environment. And I would just say, if you will get asked questions, tough questions about Islam and so on and so forth, and as I have been in whether I was in school or in workplaces, do your own research, get yourself educated, get yourself comfortable with response rather than feigning ignorance is the way I would look at it. Any other advice you would give to a newbie?
Yeah, I would say find your people. So, I would say that, one of the things is, try and find other Muslims. Like, Ramadan is a great time to find other Muslims, and at least, you can share your own experiences. And I know that's sometimes hard, and it does take courage to navigate and kind of finding your people and, people who identify as Muslim but it helps build the community, and it starts with something small of just sharing your own experiences about being Muslim and talking about, what you might want to see different at your workplace. So small steps and find your people. And it starts from there. And very transparently, sometimes if you do have a senior leader who is willing to step into that space of authenticity, it really does help. And so, if you know there's a senior leader who is Muslim and they're open to kind of, at least, having that conversation of also being Muslim, maybe you can build off of that. There might be something to build off of.
Yeah. Thank you. And I know we're at 1:05. We have one last question. How do you deal with conversation? This is a difficult one around involvement of large organizations when it comes to investments that could be related to genocide in Palestine, right? So number one, again, you need to know what your values are and Regardless of Palestine or not, where you're comfortable working, and understanding the place that you're working for. Um, because it isn't black and white. And I've worked in a variety of industries, some that would qualify as halal. But when I'm there and I'm seeing things that I'm seeing, I would question that definition, or maybe that label in that particular space. So you really need to get a better sense of where you're willing to work, and what conversations you want to have in the place. My general position has always been is, if I'm there, at least I can have a conversation. I can raise a concern on something that maybe people have not actually understood as a concern, not necessarily seen as such. Our current environment is so complex that honestly, it is very difficult to actually understand and follow where money flows in any industry, across the board. But I would say, if there are channels in which you can have these conversations, and usually in large organizations there are, you can take it upon yourself to raise those concerns, raise the questions. Am I going to tell you that it is without consequence? No, obviously you've seen that in the news, and we've seen it so many times over the past year and a half. There could be consequences to that. And it is, are you comfortable to take on the consequences? Are you okay with that? I always say, whatever you do it with the best intentions, with the greatest honor that you could have, and then the rest is Allah's plan. Now that brings us to 107. Simon, if there's anything else that you want to kind of touch on that, or any closing remarks that you have?
All I would say is, firstly, thank you so much, Ida, for having me, and also having this dialogue, which is so important, about how we can foster, safe spaces, community spaces at work. So thank you so much for having me. And, if there's one takeaway, I would say continue to build those bridges as Muslims. It's so incredibly important that we create those bridges to reach different individuals, and just raise more awareness of who we are, our community, and allow us to continue to do the work that we do.
Yeah, and you'll raise more bridges with kindness any day. And I think this is, if you just step back and reflect on the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you'll see the same thing. That was the way he's shown up and interacted with the communities around him, and what we're inspired to do. Our next session is on performance appraisals, which is everybody's favorite topic, I'm sure. But I promise you, you will walk away from that session and feel like you got this for the rest of your life. You got this. This is never going to bring you anxiety again. So I want to thank Saima for joining us for this fantastic conversation. Kareem in the background, who has been helping us out with StreamYard, and everybody else who's made time. Thank you. I know it is very challenging to make time in the day to come for these sessions. Do take time to follow Max on LinkedIn or Instagram. You will see registration for the upcoming sessions. There are some fantastic topics being planned. And if you want us to talk about something, do let us know. We always appreciate feedback and direction. We're here for you. We give up our time to make these things happen for you. So you tell us what you'd like. Thank you for joining. Appreciate your time. And until next time, have a great one.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.